Yeah.
All right, welcome. Sam and I get to come back for another webinar on portfolio management, so super excited about that. For those of you who we have not worked with in the past or you've not seen one of our webinars before, I'm Jacqueline Lauren, this is Sam Ayers, and we are with Valiantus. Sam, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, yeah. So hi, pleasure to be with you guys here today. I'm one of the consultants here at our St. Louis practice, and I currently live in the Agile at Scale kind of realm, but then also dabble in other areas of Atlassian consulting. But happy to be here with you guys. I'll be presenting the tools today.
Awesome, thanks, Sam. And I'm Jacqueline Lauren. My current title is Director of Training, but before that, I have worked on multiple customers and still sometimes do. With Sam, specifically, we get to partner up a lot and implement some of these solutions that we're going to be walking you through today. In my past, I have also had the opportunity to be a portfolio manager as a role. And then, of course, we're both SPCs, so we work a lot with companies, just helping them understand not only the portfolio management piece, but all the things that means, the organization and the process for teams. So super excited to be with you. Also, I would be remiss if we didn't do a 10-second plug for Valiantus. So we are with Valiantus, and Valiantus is a platinum Atlassian partner, and we are helping companies all around the globe with licensing, consulting, training. So if we can be of help, if something that you see today interests you, we'll go back and share some information about how you reach out to us in the end. All right, so today we are going to be discussing why do you care about portfolio management, some tooling options. As Sam said, he is going to share some demos with us, so he's going to do a tool deep dive for a couple of these options. Then we'll do a nice wrap up of the tools that we've talked about, and then we'll open it up for questions. So why portfolio management? Sometimes this term is used a little bit differently than how I think it's intended. So just to level set, when we talk about portfolio management, we are talking about all the projects that a company is working on. It's essentially getting our arms around, this is everything that we are currently working on as a company, and here are all the things that we want to work on in the future. Do you need portfolio management? If you're asking yourself these questions that we're going to talk about next, you might want to look into the possibility. So if you're asking yourself or your leadership, what are the teams working on? I know everybody is super busy, but are they working on the most important things? I have no visibility. If you don't know whether you can accept a new project right now, if your customers are saying, hey, I'd like to do this, but let me know your timelines, and you really have absolutely no idea how to answer them, pretty good indication this might help you. If your dates are slipping all the time, if your teams work night and day those last couple months of a project because you weren't correct with your estimations or you're getting some nasty surprises in the middle, any of those fire drills, again, really good indications that portfolio management solution could definitely help your company. So why do we go down this path? The outcomes that we see are we have this alignment on an enterprise level. We now know what the company is working on. It is the most valuable project or projects. We can see how much our teams can do on a weekly basis or monthly basis or however you're measuring it. And we can see the availability versus the demand of what we are currently asking or what we might ask if we introduce a new project. We can see the dependency management. So some of these tools are going to have very clear options of how we show dependencies. All of them are going to have some sort of dependency management and certainly visibility into what this team is working on versus what this one is. And Sam will get into that in a couple more slides. This helps us become predictable because now we know what our teams can do, so we can know how busy they are, how utilized they are, and what we're actually going to be asking of them as we pull in new projects. And then we can start to prioritize, which we'll look at an example in a slide, in our next slide. Our stakeholders and our teams are going to start to be able to really see how we're progressing towards these projects. So when Sam pulls up these demos, you'll see that we have the project or initiative or epic or whatever you call it in your company listed. And then all of the teams that are in Jira, all of their work is going to be linked, and you can see essentially real time how far they are in completing that work. We're going to have less fire drills and there'll be less risk because we're going to have a lot more visibility every step throughout the process. So this is what I was talking about when I referred to the idea of being able to prioritize on this portfolio level. This is a board that it's native to Jira, and it gets more meaningful if you have Jira Premium because you can see you'll see in advanced roadmaps when Sam walks you through that, how you can have that parent-child relationship. But even just being able to capture everything that you're working on, put it on a board like this, understand where it's at, and have conversations on the leadership level, that's even a big step in the right direction. And like I said, this is native to Jira. Or you can create it in native Jira, I should say. So let's talk about implementation. The tools are great. The tools will bring a lot of clarity. They will really help to get your arms around what's out there. But first it starts with people, and then process, and then tools. The tools are only as good as the information that our people are putting into them, and obviously keeping it updated, which is where your process comes in as well, and the conversations you have during that process. The good news about this is there are very minimal impacts to the team. So on a team level, the tools we're going to share with you it's really not going to affect the way they do work. They can continue with their daily lives and their development, and it will all be pretty seamless. Another thing that you probably want to consider is start with a smaller group in your portfolio. We've seen a lot of success where people start with a team or two teams. They come up with their best idea of what they think the process will be for their company. Of course, Sam and I can start off with suggestions out of the box, but then really it depends on what type of projects you work on, your process. That is going to have those small tweaks that you want to start with a single team or a couple of teams, and then you can push it out to the rest of the portfolio. And finally, this is probably one of the biggest shocks, is this organization on the leadership level. So a lot going on leadership levels, and really starting to pin that down and capture all the information around the projects that we're trying to get up into our portfolio, that can be shocking. So again, good news on the team level, you're not going to see a lot of changes, but on the leadership level, you will need to have some different conversations, but all well worth it. All right, so let's get to the good stuff. Our tooling options. Sam is going to walk us through demos of Advanced Roadmap, Structure and Structure Gant, Big Picture and Big Picture Enterprise. And then we're going to lightly touch on Jira Line at the end. As any of you know who are familiar with Jira Line, that is a pretty big, complicated solution, and we have webinars specifically about that one. But we will touch on it because it certainly needs to have a nod when we talk about portfolio management. So Sam, we'll turn it over to you, sir.
Okay. Thanks, Jackie. That's great. All right, so I'll jump to my next slide here. So yeah, the first tool we're going to look at, as Jackie mentioned, is advanced roadmaps. And just want to give a brief kind of overview of this tool. So advanced roadmaps is a cross-project road mapping and visualization tool with some baked in team level capacity capabilities. Just a side note here, it is available in Data Center and Jira Cloud Premium. So if you're in either flavor of Jira, you have it at your disposal. And then as far as tool organization is concerned, the primary object, and you're actually looking at an example of this right now, is a plan. And each plan has its own definable scope, views, scenarios, and then permissions tied to those. And what's nice about advanced roadmaps is that if you commit changes, or you can actually rather commit changes to Jira from your plan, and just further highlighting that you really are working with a native Atlassian tool that integrates seamlessly with Jira. That being stated, this is something we get asked about a lot. It is not a Gantt chart. It is truly a live road mapping tool. So for example, if I move one of these time bars out in the plan, it's only going to move that specific time period for that specific item of work, and not everything else that's nested under it in a child-parent relationship. So it truly is just another way to visualize work. While it functions very differently, it's not totally dissimilar to that Kanban board that Jackie was showing you earlier. It's just another visualization tool. So with that, let's go ahead and jump into advanced roadmaps and take a look at the tool itself. So here's advanced roadmaps, very similar to the screenshot that you just saw on the previous slide. And it really is just, it's broken up into three different parts. You have the issue section over here where you see the hierarchy from initiative down to what we call the story level or subtask level, I think is actually how this hierarchy is configured. And then we have a field section here where we can add additional fields. We can actually collapse this view, which is kind of nice from a UI perspective, or expand it depending on what fields we want to look at. So for example, if I wanted to look at just the status, or if I want to include target start and target end, I can click into these fields. And then additionally, I can actually add more fields. So these are the fields that I have currently that I'm using, and then I can reorder these, which is kind of nice based on importance or need for visibility. And then I also have the option to add additional custom fields over here. So these are all the fields that I'm currently leveraging. I can add custom fields that exist within Jira. What's really nice is that this GUI will actually show you what fields are supported, and you can actually show unsupported fields so that very quickly you can see what fields you can use and what fields you can't use. So let's go back to the plan here. And then truly, as we mentioned, it's a road mapping tool, and so you have this wonderful roadmap view over here on the right. So with that, let's talk about date behavior. Well, one quick thing too I want to share about planning views. So you actually do have different planning views at your disposal. So here I'm looking at initiative planning, where I have stories and bugs and subtasks rolling up to epics, and then additionally up to initiative. Let's say I just wanted to plan at the epic level. I could jump to this epic planning view and still keep in mind what my epic is ultimately rolling up to in the way of a parent link field, but this way I'm allowed to plan at just the epic level. So just highlighting that you've got different views that you can use at your disposal, and we'll look at a couple of these later on. So going back to the actual roadmap section here, scroll down just a little bit. Let's take a look at date behavior. So timeline bars that you're looking at right now appear in the roadmap based on manually updated start and end dates. So in this case, we're leveraging target start and target end. And parents can actually inherit their children's dates. So for example, if I were to dither out the start and end dates of this epic, but then update one of the stories here. So let's add today and then going into next month, for example. I hope the story doesn't take that long, but it's a good example. And what we have here is then a roll-up manifested as what we call a barber poll that is ultimately rolling up dates to the epic. So it's really nice. You have the option to either drive dates at the epic or initiative level, or you can drive dates from the story at subtask level. You can also click in a time bar over into the plan here. So let me actually collapse this a little bit more real estate-wise and jump into one of these blank issues. So if I just click in, then I can click into the bar. And what's really nice is I can adjust the length just by clicking and dragging. I have this wonderful date summary at my disposal down here that I can add. You also can visualize some date behavior. So for example, if you know your target start but don't know your target end date, I could dither out target end, and then you'll see that it kind of starts solid over here and just kind of fades off into oblivion. So you still get a visual representation of your date on the plan, which is really helpful even if you don't know your target end, or vice versa. If I were to put in my target end, but I didn't know my target start, it would manifest in a reverse manner with the barber pole kind of showing on the left side of the bar. So some pretty cool visualization options when you're manipulating dates. Let's go ahead and shift to talking about dependency behavior. So dependencies are handled via Jira links. And as a side note, updating an issue's dates will not update its dependents. So it's just something to keep in mind when you're considering this tool. Jira links don't achieve what we would expect with a Gantt chart, which has dependency relationships of start to start, start to finish, etc. So again, just highlighting further that this isn't a Gantt chart. So dependencies within the plan anyway manifest as this red yarn that you see here between these two issues that have a dependency. If I click into them, I get some more issue detail that's congruent with what we see on the left pane, and then also the linking relationship here of blocks. If I were to jump into this issue, I would see that linking relationship manifested within Jira. So kind of neat, actually, if I were to add an additional linked issue here and that issue was represented in my plan, I would see it represented automatically in the plan with red yarn based on the dependency and also the dependency relationship here. So seamless integration between Jira, which is really awesome. And then I definitely want to show you this report because this is something our clients actually get really excited about, but this is our dependencies report over here on the left. And essentially what this is doing is showing you just kind of an augmented view of what you saw in the plan, which is kind of almost more, I would argue, maybe a visually pleasing or more visually pleasing manner. And so we have some filtering options up here where we can choose what our hierarchy and roll up. We can group by different criteria here. So for example, if I'm going to group by project and actually see a visual representation, I have a lot of issues that are dependent issues or dependent on an issue within Scale Team Charlie. That might be something I want to take back to my planning sessions and discuss with those teams. So pretty cool functionality within this report alone, pretty robust. You can actually choose that and look at specific projects, sprints, issues, so on and so forth. It's a pretty cool view. So let's go back to our plan. And let's talk about sandbox capability within advanced roadmaps. So within these PPM tools, you'll see a common thread. And a lot of times we have clients ask us, well, you know, is this a true sandbox environment where I can kind of manipulate data without affecting prod data, which is a totally valid question, valid concern. And so in this case, within advanced roadmaps, technically everything you are doing in advanced roadmaps is effectively in a sandbox until you commit those changes back to Jira. Case in point up here on the top right, this review changes button, if I click into this, I can see this nice summary of all the changes that were made on issues. And I get a little bit more detail even if I expand these fields, where I adjusted target start and target end date. I can see who did it, at what time they did it, and then the change that was made. And what's really nice is I can save all of these changes in Jira. And then I can send notifications based on who's watching that issue or who's assigned to it, so on and so forth. And so again, further just highlighting that all the things that you're doing, even if you start clicking around in a plan, they're not committed until you decide to commit those to Jira. So I can discard those changes and basically revert back to where I started. You have an extra layer of sandbox capability with this addition of an idea of scenarios. So you can see up here in the top left, I'm currently operating in my best case scenario. If I were to make a change, let's say on alpha 18 and add a date here, if I go over to worst case, you can see that that date change is not reflected within the plan. And so just showing you, again, you have an extra layer essentially of sandbox capability with scenarios. It allows you to plan with scenarios, which is kind of neat. All right, so let's talk about resourcing behavior and capabilities therein. So resourcing happens at the team level and not the individual level. So that's often a point of deciding factor for a lot of our clients of resourcing capability. It is at the team level, not the individual level. If I go over to the left pane and click on Teams, we can see some of that, or at least some of the settings that are available to us. So we have our team set up. We have Alpha team, Beta team, and Charlie team. And then within each of these teams, I have settings that I can manipulate. I can add team members. I can add an issue source. I can change my planning style. I can adjust the default sprint length for this team and also capacity. And where this really shines within advanced roadmaps is if I go back to my plan, there's this wonderful team capacity planning view where I can look at each team, all the issues that are assigned to that team, also what sprints they're currently operating in, and then you have this wonderful sprint bar up here at the top that you can interact with. It gives you a wealth of information, talks about point allocation, your sprint, you can look at capacity, so on and so forth. So for again, planning teams and setting up teams, there's a wealth of opportunity for managing capacity within this view and also within the teams menu. All right, so shifting gears a little bit, I just have to show this feature because it takes up some real estate on the screen, and I definitely want to draw attention to it. So let me go back to our initiative planning view, and there's this tool called Auto Scheduler, and it essentially does exactly what its name suggests, which it basically tries to auto schedule issues based on rank, assignee, story points, sprint info, and kind of the list goes on. And so what you'll see are these purple bars that are kind of beckoning you to accept these changes or not accept them. So you have a chance to review them, and then you can accept the changes, which would commit all of that date shifting out. So kind of a neat feature here. So I'll click cancel. All right, so with that, real quick, with regard to sharing your plan, so a lot of times we have questions from clients about what are my options for sharing my plan outside of this tool? And actually you have a wealth of those within the tool. So you can actually share a link directly to the plan. You can embed the plan via an iframe here. You've got Confluence where you can share the plan directly to Confluence. And there's also some wonderful Confluence macro options actually on Confluence where you can visualize basically a live plan within Confluence. And then CSV, you can export to CSV, or you can actually share a high quality image of your plan, which takes a minute to generate. And then you got some custom options up here to choose the width and also date range. So whole wealth of sharing opportunities. All right, so let's wrap up advanced roadmaps here. So I want to wrap up the demonstration by quickly rattling off a few other things about advanced roadmaps that may be helpful to you when you're kind of making a decision after you've already had your people and process discussions around tools. So with regard to estimation, you can estimate your work with story points or time tracking. However, you can't do a hybrid of the two, so something to consider there. There's no critical path functionality, so that's something we hear a lot. It's a common thread in some of the other tools that we'll show you today. There's no baseline functionality. That also shows in another couple of tools that we're showing you. No earliest start, and then no cross-plan resource view, which you'll actually see or can visualize in big picture. So some of the highlights, again, it's a native Atlassian tool. It is not a Gantt chart. It's great for road mapping, great for team level resourcing, and you got a wealth of options to share visualizations. All right, let's go ahead and jump into structure. And I will talk on this slide for just a moment. So structure is an issue hierarchy app in its own right. And that's actually what you're seeing on the left side of the screen here, which is honestly useful in and of itself. But then what you see on the right is this addition of a Gantt chart add-on called Structure Gantt. And so I want to highlight that these are actually two separate add-ons that are available in the Atlassian marketplace. You do have to purchase both if you want Structure in addition to Gantt. It is available in Jira Cloud and Data Center. And when it comes to the tool juxtaposed to advanced roadmaps where the primary object is a plan, the primary object with Structure and Structure Gantt is a Gantt chart. And it is built from the structure that you see on the left here within the screenshot. And then each Structure Gantt combo has its own definable scope, hierarchy, views, scenarios, baselines, scheduling and resourcing behavior, and quick filters. So with that, let's go ahead and jump into the tool. Okay, so on the left side, you can see, which is congruent with that screenshot that I was just showing you, the structure side of this. And then you have issues rolling up similarly to advanced roadmaps up to this initiative layer. So you're all the way down to the story level, then up to epics, then up to the initiative layer. And then similar to advanced roadmaps, you have Jira fields represented as columns. So for example, I've added the assignee column here. Let's say I wanted to add another field. I could add status, for example. And then I will see Jira statuses represented right here within the plan, which is kind of neat. And then you can also see there's a ton of other fields that you can add if I scroll down here. So you can scroll on for a while here and see a bunch of different fields, but basically a wealth of customization options. So similarly, I just added the parent link field. That's another option there. And then we saw that in advanced roadmaps. Kind of cool. And then on the right side, you have a true Gantt chart. So with regard to date behavior, dates are automatically determined and duration is already set based on the properties of each work item within the plan. So if I click into one of these, let's say I'll click into this guy here. There are several options for scheduling on an item by item basis. So we can observe a fixed duration, which we have already set here, or we can set our own fixed duration. And then we have the option to toggle between auto and manual scheduling on a per item basis. So if you're set to auto, the dates and duration will be set on the estimate of this particular work item. Let's talk about dependency behavior. So similar to advanced roadmaps, you are kind of connected with this arrow yarn here. If I click into a dependency, then I see issue information and then also the type of dependency. So as we would expect with a Gantt chart, we have 4 types of dependencies: start to start, start to finish, finish to start, finish to finish, and then optional lead lag time here. And so again, true Gantt chart here. Critical path functionality, so I mentioned that's absent in advanced roadmaps. You do have the option to toggle critical path off and on. You can actually see on Alpha 71, I believe, over here, that critical path will highlight these issues. Oops, clicked on the wrong thing here. Or unhighlight them based on whether or not this is toggled on. So you do have a critical path visualization option within this tool. And then baselines, yes, you can have multiple baselines. You can set as many baselines as you want and essentially see how far your schedule has moved, which is obviously the purpose of a baseline. And so up here, I could interact with this menu. I don't currently have any baselines, but I could create a new one, give it a name, choose the type, whether it's Jira-based or Gantt-based. So in the way of sharing visualizations, there are multiple options. You can export your structure and Structure Gantt. You can add your structure to Jira or Confluence or a dashboard. So lots of opportunity here. You would click share to do those up there. And then very quickly, I want to show you some of more of the granular settings, and actually a really cool setting that's particular to this tool, which is being able to present slices of data. And so if I go into the settings cog here, You've got several different options. You've got your general settings where you're setting your start day, your calendar, appearance options. You have a bunch of scheduling settings here where you can manipulate your work estimate settings, manual scheduling. You've got your dependencies. This is where you get your Gantt dependencies, and you can select some options here. Set your optional lead and lag time. And then what's really neat is you have this idea of slices of data. So just as the caption shares here, you can create subsets of items in the way of slices. And essentially what's really neat about this is you can create a new slice, and then you can choose either issue types or a JQL query. So just showing that you can really hone in on specific slices of data driven by what's currently existing in Jira. It's kind of neat functionality. All right. So let's talk about resourcing behaviors. So if I click on this person icon over here and go down just a little bit further, scroll back to the task, grab my scroll bar here. There we go. That's what we want to see. Okay. So you see resource usage down here on the right denoted in red. Red will denote essentially that I'm over allocated or these individuals are over allocated. You can choose either to visualize this in hours or a percentage, whatever is more helpful to you. So you can see that Brian is 201.3% over allocated. So we would need to address that as his team leader, of course. And then we have the option to view some resource settings. If I select Brian here and then click this settings icon, this is where I can set a unit against Brian as an individual, and a unit defines how much work can be done with this particular resource over a fixed amount of time. And then I've got some time zone settings that I can manipulate, and a work calendar also that I can assign specifically to Brian. And then also I can adjust his availability and capacity percentage. All right, and then ultimately, what's nice about this tool is that you can resource assignment rather can happen on the individual or team basis. And then availability of resources is handled through shared calendars, with working hours and time zones, days, and holidays. And then also resources can be temporarily assigned a percentage reduction or expanded capacity. And then tasks, actually, if I go back to this task view, tasks can actually be set with a maximum unit for resourcing. So this determines how much of a resource a task can use, or another way of putting it, how many people should be working on a task at a given time. So kind of tying resourcing back to an issue by issue configuration basis. So let's jump back to our slideshow. So similar to what I did for advanced roadmaps, I just want to quickly just rattle off a few things about functionality within the tool. So there are sandbox capabilities for structure. Sadly, that's only for data center right now. I will say Jira Cloud is a fast-moving, fast-developing environment, and so I would expect to see this functionality rolled out to Structure Cloud at some point. Another way of putting that is that any changes that you make in Structure Cloud are getting pushed back to Jira automatically. So you don't have this kind of check that you have with advanced roadmaps where you say, oh, are you sure you want to commit these changes? So just something to keep in mind. There are estimation options. You can estimate in story points, time tracking, or formulas. You can also perform automatic conversion between story points and time, which actually is pretty cool. So pretty robust there in a way of estimation, or at least settings as they're pertaining to estimation. And then resource leveling is available currently only for data center, also may roll that out for cloud at a future date. There are no early start, early finish, late start, or late finish constraints. There's also there isn't this idea of skills capabilities within structured Gantt. So you will see that in big picture. But basically the idea with skills is that you can, within a tool, let's say I have a skill of developer, I can predetermine my resources and based on their skill sets, give them a skill or role within a planning tool and then manipulate those resources based on skills. So there isn't a skills functionality within structure to date. And then there's also no cross-plane resource view, which you can actually leverage that in Big Picture and Big Picture Enterprise. So just some deciding factors to take into consideration. You do have that slices functionality that really gets pretty granular with how you can visualize data. So that was a pretty neat function within this tool. You do have team and individual level resourcing capability within this tool, which is particular to this tool, juxtaposed to the other tools that I've showed you or will show you with Big Picture and what I've already showed you with advanced roadmaps. You can have multiple baselines, durations based on estimates. Structures, even just by themselves, can actually be quite useful. The structure app just alone is a great app, very functional. No skills capability like I just mentioned. And again, resource leveling for DC, sandboxes only for DC. And then you have a lot of visualization options that you can leverage within the tool. All right, last, but certainly not least, we have Big Picture and Big Picture Enterprise. And so Big Picture is a multi-tool, or I've heard it been called the Swiss Army knife of PPM tools within the Atlassian ecosystem and Atlassian marketplace. It contains a product called Big Gant, but also includes modules for Agile and program boards, risks, roadmaps, and objectives. There's an expanded resource view, including workload plans, holiday plans, and skills. There are team calendars and additional reporting if you want to use the full version of Big Picture or Big Picture Enterprise. And like advanced roadmaps, where the primary object is a plan, in structure and structure Gantt, the primary object is a Gantt. The primary object within Big Picture is something called a box. And a box is kind of like a plan, and I'll kind of explain this more as we move along. So if you get Big Picture Enterprise, you get unlimited box types, and actually what you're looking at right down here are different boxes. And basically within Big Picture Enterprise, not only do you get unlimited box types, you get unlimited scenarios across box resource views. So if you've got essentially, if we want to replace the word box with a project, you've got several different users that are working across a couple different project and or boxes, you can have this wonderful view that allows you to resource plan across boxes. So that's kind of a neat feature with Big Picture Enterprise. You get module renaming, also some awesome tempo integration that is available, data residency, and then also some advanced reporting modifications. So Big Picture Enterprise may be something you want to consider if any of those features pique your interest. Like I mentioned with the other apps, Big Picture is also available in Jira Cloud and Data Center. So as I mentioned, Big Picture is structured in boxes, and then each box has its own definable scope, hierarchy views, scenarios, scheduling, and resourcing behavior, and also quick filters. And each interesting feature here, each box can actually bidirectionally sync with Trello cards. So if you're a Trello shop, maybe something you want to consider, maybe not. Box types, and you actually will see box types represented over here on the left. Box types relate to each other with a parenting relationship and also contain template metadata that can be changed once a box is created. So in this way, it's kind of almost like a Jira issue type and an issue template. Some example box types are portfolio, program increment, iteration, in line with agility. For more traditional planning, a box could be a project, phase, or initiative. So let's go ahead and jump into Big Picture here. All right, so the first thing I want to talk about is date behavior. So issues appear in the Gantt based on manually updated rather, start and end dates, or auto-scheduled dates based on dependency links. So it does not look at estimates to determine duration. And then referring to scheduling options, on a per item basis, you can select top-down, bottom-up, manual, or locked scheduling options. So if I click into, just to illustrate that, I can go into scheduling mode, and this is where I would dictate if it's driving date behavior up. And so in this case, my story level or bug level is ultimately dictating my epic level over here in the hierarchy. And then also too, I can schedule into a locked or manual state for the date behavior. Let's go ahead and talk about dependency behavior. So if I scroll down a little bit, you can see this yellow dependency relationship between alpha 18 and alpha 5. And if I click into the dependency itself, then you get this screen where you have your source task, your target task, and then you have your dependency type. And this is where you can choose start to start, start to end, end to start, end to end, or soft. And soft in this case refers to dependencies that are occurring via Jira links. And so what's kind of neat about this is it allows for traditional Gantt dependency mapping with that extra layer or addition of allowing teams to drive dependencies with native Jira linking relationships. So similar to what I was showing you with advanced roadmaps, when you're linking issues, if I were to toggle this to soft, it's going to respect that Jira issue linking relationship. Some other settings just to be aware of while we're in this box, you're able to set lag time, and then you have ASAP mode, which you can toggle off and on, which essentially allows for looser scheduling while still respecting that link type. Close out of this. So in reference to sandboxes, like I mentioned with the other the other two tools rather, they are available in Big Picture, but you're limited to one private and one not private scenario. To illustrate that, if I go up here, you can see I'm in my live scenario. I can create a new one, and then essentially I could create a new scenario here, but then I can just have it be private or not private here. So you're limited to those two. If you update to Big Picture Enterprise, you can leverage multiple sandboxes. With regard to estimation, time tracking is done by using Jira's original estimate or remaining estimate fields, or by story points. So automatic conversion between story points and time is available and configurable per box. Critical path, yes, so critical path is available similar to structure and structure Gantt, and you can toggle it on as easily as interacting with this checkbox here. All right. Baselines. So yes, baselines can be set for the entire Gantt or on a per issue basis. However, you're only allowed one baseline per issue, and this is because it saves to a baseline Jira field. And that's also the icon that I was just in here, where I can toggle that off and on. As far as early start, early finish, late start, and late finish constraints are concerned, those aren't available. In the realm of sharing visualizations, you can share a view up here in the top right, but to leverage other sharing options, it requires an additional add-on. And so you're a little bit limited, at least just with Big Picture by itself, on how you can share visualizations. Resourcing behavior, let's go ahead and talk about that. So I'm going to toggle resource behavior on with this icon here. And we've got unassigned, and we have our resources assigned to issues down here. And then over here, if we had allocation configured, you'd see it over here. And so you can see that unassigned is accounting for most of our workload here. But what you can do is you would be able to scroll through the issues. It lines up with the timeline, and you would actually be able to see team allocation within this specific box, which is really, really helpful. And so actually, if I click into, oh yeah, over here. Yeah, so on an individual basis, you'd be able to see workload, remaining capacity, if I had Brian selected versus unassigned, but just to show you some of the settings that are available here. And something to note while we're talking about resourcing behavior, so resourcing is done on an individual basis or individual resource versus the team level for resourcing behavior. So juxtaposed to structure, where you can resource with team and individuals, it's just individual within Big Picture. And then availability is handled through something called a shared workload plan, a holiday plan, and individual absence adjustments. So on the individual resource level on a different screen, you can change where individuals are available. And then capacity adjustments are done through a shared workload plan and then applied to an individual. So for example, there's the standard 8 hours a day plan, and then we could assign it to each individual. Also, going back to what I mentioned previously with tempo integration, you can integrate your tempo work plans over into Big Picture, which is kind of a neat functionality, and those sync rather seamlessly. Jumping over to a different feature that is particular to this tool, let's talk about skills. So there is a skills feature, as I just mentioned, within Big Picture, and in Big Picture you define skills, and on a work item, or a Jira issue in this case, you determine which skill this work item requires. So a developer or a project manager, for example, could be some roles or skills that you define. And then once you have a skill applied, you can use this feature called Find the Perfect Match. So actually, let me jump out into a Jira issue so you can see this at play here. And if I go down to this big picture, wow, I'm struggling with saying that today, big picture skills field here that you get with Big Picture, you can choose your required skill. And then in this case, we have developers or project managers available to us. And then you can click this Find Perfect Match option. And what this is going to do is find recommended individuals. Hypothetically, we don't have it configured within the tool right now, but what it'll do is take into account individual workload and capacity, and then also that person's capabilities and whether or not they're a good fit for being an assignee on this particular issue. So kind of a neat functionality actually within this tool to be able to assign ideally the best person for a piece of work. A couple of other things really quickly just to be aware of as we wrap up Big Picture. There's no resource leveling. There is a cross-plan resource view only if you use Big Picture Enterprise. So that's that view that I was talking about earlier. So going back to our slideshow. Similar to the other tools, I just want to talk about a couple of things that you might take into consideration as deciding factors. So this is truly multiple tools in one. You do get a risk module, a program board if you're practicing safe, and a calendar. So this tool is very robust, and you may find it even has more than what you actually need, just depending on your planning needs. Cross-plan resource views are available. You do have that skills functionality that I just showed you. Resource contouring, rather, is available. You don't have resource leveling. You do have limited configurations within a box. You really can only, in the way of sharing, I should stress that, but you really can only configure by Jira project versus structure, where you have this slices capability that I showed you earlier. And then you require an additional add-on to export more visualizations. So that's something also to consider. All right. I'll pitch it back over to Jackie.
All right, thanks, Sam. I learn something new every time we talk. This,
You're too kind.
Yeah, no, it's great. Okay, so then finally we'll round it all out talking about Jira Align. And like I said earlier, Jira Align is actually such a big tool in and of itself that we are just going to briefly touch on it because we have other webinars that we have created out there specific to Jira Align. So Jira Align is not a plugin. It's an application in and of itself, and then it works via Jira connectors. This is usually something that is utilized by large companies with very large portfolios. It's a very complicated solution. It's a very powerful tool, but also very expensive, and it is a little bit to configure. You would need a partner to probably spend a couple of months configuring it for you. So it's a little more intricate of a solution. But again, definitely worth a nod if this is, you qualify as a large portfolio and this is something that you're interested in adopting. Quite good. So here's a nice sample view of what the program board would look like. For those of you who utilize SAFe methodology, this probably looks pretty familiar. Of course, also other scaling methodologies out there, less, DAD. But for any of you who scale, this probably is something near and dear to your heart, and you can see how comprehensive just looking at this program board is. And of course you could click in, this is just a screenshot, but if we were in the actual tool, you could click into those icons as well. So to wrap up Jira Align, you have road mapping functions. You can do OKRs within it, which we're actually doing a workshop in a couple of weeks on OKRs. Yeah. You have the program board, which we just looked at. You have program portfolio, strategy rooms, and then of course dependency management. So that rounds out the tools. So if any of these solutions interest you, before we get to our Q&A, we are going to have in one of these slides in the next couple, we'll have information how to reach out to Sam or myself, find us on LinkedIn. You can also hit up the chat on this Zoom, and Kylie can help get you some contact information. Of course, you can just Google Valiantus. So a lot of options to get a hold of us, but we'd love to hear from you if there was something in here that interests you you'd like to talk more about. Also, because I'm in training, I'm going to do another quick plug for training. If you are interested in Jira Align Bootcamp training, we have a promo code down here for you where you can go to our website and you can get 20% off the boot camp, which is a 2-day boot camp, which allows you to see Jira Align and have one of our experts walk you through it. All right, let's open it up for questions. Oh, Kylie, I saw that you just put that link in there, how to get to Align Bootcamp. So thank you so much for that. Appreciate it. All right. And it doesn't look like we have any questions at the moment. Well, we went kind of long today, so we didn't leave a lot of time.
Yes, anyway. Apologies there.
Yeah. All right, and so if you do have additional questions, it looks like Kylie has also put some contact info in there. Tooling questions definitely for Sam, or if you have process questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Here is email addresses for both of us, or QR codes to find us on LinkedIn. Thank you so much for your time today. Oh, thanks for putting that up there as well, Kylie. Okay, great. Thank you everyone for your time today. I hope this was helpful and look forward to hearing from you soon.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.